Welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And if you're new here, what we are doing on the show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from 1984's Duck Hunt to 2019's Fire Emblem Three Houses.
And this is also the first episode for each of us on a new microphone.
Yeah!
It's a completely new era.
A new era of the same shit. And this episode is representing fighter number 19, Pichu. It is the 2064 game, Pokémon Stadium 2. I think that this game is fascinating in terms of what it kind of represents. And we said this on the both the 2020 wrap-up episode and on the pre-show for last episode. But this game is bizarre to look back on because it's a game created specifically to solve a problem that no longer exists and has not existed for like 5 years.
Yeah, so obviously the big appeal of this is, hey, your Pokemon are in 3D now. Which isn't a thing anymore.
There were multiple games like this. Like you mentioned, there was one that only came out in Japan that I didn't know about until you told me about it last episode. And then there was the one we got as just Pokémon Stadium, and that was just Gen 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gen 2 got this re-release being Pokémon Stadium 2, which was just Pokémon Stadium 1, but now Gen 2's in there too. And then, if I remember correctly, there's 2 on the GameCube. There's Coliseum, and I think, is XD Gale of Darkness? I know it's more like a story-based game, but is it kind of like this?
Yeah, those are weird because they're full RPGs. And like they have this you can play regular battles with your Pokemon mode on the side.
Yeah. And then we had Pokemon Battle Revolution, and that was the last game like this.
And I remember Battle Revolution like already being kind of like Gen 5 never got one of these games, and I kind of feel like that's because playing Battle Revolution, you can kind of feel they were already out of ideas.
And then right after Gen 5, you got X and Y, and those games are in 3D, so we no longer have any need for a separate game where we can see our Pokemon in full 3D, because, I mean, there's been, X, Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Sword and Shield, upcoming we have the Diamond and Pearl remakes. Like, it's a solved problem now.
Yeah.
We don't need games like Pokemon Stadium, but back in the age-old times of 2000, we absolutely needed Pokemon Stadium 2.
Well, the thing about Pokemon Stadium 2, I don't remember Pokemon Stadium 1 enough to know if this was the case, but with Pokemon Stadium 2, yes, 3D Pokemon is the selling point, but the actual purpose that it serves is that it is a game all about the battling, and it kind of does a legitimate job of making that battling interesting. Because you face, like we did Gym Leader Castle primarily for this, you did more than that. But the thing about the Gym Leader Castle is that you go through and the gym leaders themselves actually have pretty fully formed teams. Like obviously, yes, they still each have their own elemental type, but then they also have backup Pokemon that cover for their elemental weaknesses. Pokemon that don't always fit into their theme, or Pokemon that fit into their theme in different ways besides just the type advantage. And it provides a legitimate challenge, legitimate for most of it until it stops being legitimate, that you don't usually see in Pokemon, because Pokemon is so heavily based around either a PvP experience with other players or the single player RPG that it is.
And also it is a more like purified version of battling with Pokemon, because it gets rid of what I, as an adult, now recognize as the 2 biggest possible crutches that the regular games give you, which is the ability to switch out after you've beaten the opponent's Pokemon.
I can't believe you never realized how broken that was until now.
And also the ability to use items during battle.
I don't think items during battle is quite as overpowered, but it's also definitely something that doesn't work in a PvP setting.
I mean, if you go pick up, like, fucking 10 full restores.
Well, yeah.
And your team is immortal, functionally.
Yeah, but in the context of a single-player RPG, that's not as unbelievably overpowered as it sounds because there's a physical cost to getting those items. But once you bring it into a PvP arena, player versus player, that's it. It's not a game anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, the quick switching thing is just ridiculous. Like, that's unbelievably too much.
Well, like, there's a reason you don't get to do that during, like, versus battles with friends.
There's an option for it, but you should always have it off.
It's a really interesting way to look at battling, because, I mean, it's just the battles. I think it's actually, we accidentally stumbled into, like, the perfect way to, like, slowly dip our toes into Pokemon. Being, we started with Snap, and that's just a game about looking at Pokemon. And then we went to Puzzle League, which is a game heavily built around the anime, which is what made Pokemon big in America. And then you get to Stadium, which is just the battling of Pokemon, and then we're not going to play another Pokemon game until we hit Fire Red and Leaf Green, which is a regular Pokemon game.
There's also nothing about Pokémon Stadium 2 that I would describe as dipping your toes into the franchise, because it is brutally difficult at points, and, like, not fun to stream if you don't really know Pokemon, because inevitably everyone in the stream chat knows it better than you and will be criticizing your every move.
I can't imagine what that might be like. Welcome to me with almost every single other game we've played.
I think this is a great game. I absolutely hated streaming it and will not miss it.
See, I had a great time streaming it, but also I tire of the Nintendo 64 and the hoops that we have had to jump through to play them. And I'm just ready to be done with the Nintendo 64. But I really, really love Pokémon Stadium 2. I used to play this game. I used to play the shit out of it as a kid. And as I covered last time, I never owned a transfer pack. So I did all of my stuff with rentals.
Maybe we should talk about the transfer pack a little bit, because this is kind of the game for the transfer pack. It isn't the only game that used it, and there are definitely games that you did not realize used it, but this is the game it is most known for, because it just was kind of stupid in every other game.
It is baffling that it didn't come with a transfer pack. It's so, like, heavily entwined with this game.
I think the first one did.
I owned both Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, like new boxed copies, and neither of them came with a transfer pack.
Are you sure you didn't buy used copies by accident?
I mean, I wouldn't have been the one buying, and I doubt my dad knew where to find used copies of Pokemon Stadium in 1999.
This is a bit of a tangent, but it's kind of astonishing how much Nintendo has chilled out on ridiculous accessories recently. Because they kind of kept this up through the Wii, where it's like the Wii had 1,000 different controllers that you could use, and then the Wii U hit, and the Wii U kind of was a big gimmick accessory in itself.
Yeah.
Then the Switch, it's got a Pro controller as your normal controller. You got the Joy-Cons as the handheld controller, and that's about it. There's really nothing crazy on the Switch. And the Nintendo 64 was ridiculous with accessories. You had the Rumble Pack, you had the Transfer Pack, and hell, a lot of games didn't leave enough space on the cartridge to actually save your games, so you had to have a separate memory pack that you plugged into the controller for those games.
I wouldn't say the Switch doesn't have anything, though, because Labo's the closest they've gotten to having something weird as hell on the Switch.
That's true. But it's just this time in the Nintendo 64 life where there was just constant weird accessories. Like, even you can kind of count the expansion pack as one.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We talked about this a lot during FF7. It's generally seen that Nintendo sticking with cartridges for the Nintendo 64 was really not the best idea they ever had.
I wouldn't say that it is inherently the worst idea they've ever made, because
I mean, they got stomped by the PlayStation.
Discs did have a big trade-off of long load times. So it's not like discs were objectively the better option. It just so happened that Final Fantasy VII specifically could only be done on a disc.
But yeah, so the transfer pack, for anybody that does not know, because that's what we started this tangent on, is a little thing that you could plug into the back of your controller, and then you could put a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color game in there. And for Pokémon Stadium, that meant that you could bring your Pokémon from that game into Pokémon Stadium and use them in stuff like tournaments and Gym Leader Castle. And even in minigames, which I did not know about until we, started working with this game. I didn't know you could take your own Pokémon in there. That's just not something I'd ever had the ability to know.
Yeah, there are some Pokemon in the minigames that only appear if you bring them in from your save file.
I sure as fuck didn't know that you could bring an Ammonite into Tumbling Togepi. That was new information for me. It's really interesting to think about that because then, the SNES had something like that for Game Boy games.
The Super Game Boy.
Yeah. And then the GameCube had something like that for GBA games. And then it stopped being a thing. The DS never had anything like that for the Wii. And the 3DS never had anything like that for the Wii U.
Well, it ended up being it's kind of an impossible thing to do from there. You can't really do DS on the TV without the touchscreen. And you definitely can't do 3DS on the TV without a significant sacrifice of the 3D. Mm-hmm. So, it's just something that there was no real ability to do it again later. The interesting thing about the emulator in Pokémon Stadium that you could use to actually play Pokemon on your TV, it was a really good emulator, a shockingly developed one that even supported speed up. You could play the game at a faster speed. And it's also, as homebrew people have discovered over the years, really, really hard coded to only work with Pokemon.
Awesome.
Nice. It is deep in that code that you're not playing any other game on this.
Beautiful. I didn't even know until recently that was a thing you could do. Because the 64, unlike the SNES and the GameCube, the 64 didn't get its own dedicated, you can use this to play Game Boy Color games on your TV. It just didn't have one of those, bizarrely. Just skipped that generation for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's weird, but the fact that it does exist, they have the technology and they put it in a game, and then we're like, but only these 3 games. That's absolutely fucking hilarious.
I mean, that's Nintendo.
I think that my favorite part of Pokémon Stadium 2, because it's how I had to play it when I was a child, is I really, really like the idea of rental Pokémon. Of you and your friend can sit down and you can make a team right then and there. And yeah, you can't pick their moves or anything like that, but whatever, sacrifices. Shut up. You can pick your team and you can then battle both of those quote-unquote dream teams together. And I really, really like the idea of rental Pokemon, which is really sad because after this, I don't think they ever did it again.
I don't think so either, but also the rental Pokemon were bizarrely balanced. They were made so that roughly every rental Pokemon was about the same power level because of the EVs and IVs that they had. The Gen 2 didn't actually have modern EVs and IVs that Pokemon has now, but it had a similar system, so I'm just going to call it that because it's easier. And for those who don't know, that's stats under the hood of how Pokemon works.
EVs you get from beating certain Pokemon, certain wild Pokemon or something.
They're basically configurable growth stats. They're growth stats that are built as your Pokemon fights other Pokemon.
And IVs are just genetic, stat stuff.
And the ones that are in the rental Pokemon for Pokémon Stadium 2 make it so that the weaker Pokemon in the game, the baby Pokemon, they get the best EVs. And the strongest Pokemon, the legendary Pokemon, they get the worst EVs. Except for Hitmontop, specifically, which has maximum EVs in every stat. Specifically Hitmontop.
Yeah, because he needs to be strong for his bad minigame. Well, no, that actually makes sense, because in order for a Tyrogue to evolve into a Hitmontop, its stats need to be the same number. Stats need to be even. Otherwise, it evolves into a Hitmonlee or a Hitmonchan.
Yeah, but they don't need to be literally maximum stats.
Yeah, says you. Hitmontop's out there living his best life. You can't judge him.
But so the rental Pokemon, they were strangely balanced and also had pretty bad movesets.
Oh yeah, I remember for sure that even as a kid, I was like, yeah, these movesets suck. They're so bad.
So they're neat, but I wouldn't buy a whole game for them. I actually kind of felt when I was a kid that if you didn't have the transfer pack actively plugged in, Pokémon Stadium 2 was just kind of a bad game.
See, and I never had that issue. I never was able to I never made it to the Kanto Castle in Pokémon Stadium 2. I think as an adult, I was able to get up to the Elite Four with all rentals, but then I never was able to make it past that. And it is shocking how much fucking easier this game is if you have a really, really well-rounded team that you made yourself and also bothered friends to tell you what movesets you should put on your Alakazam.
And people get really mad when you don't have a competitively viable team.
I don't even think I have a competitively viable team. It was just...
You have a Snorlax. That alone is a competitively viable team.
Yeah, Snorlax kind of broke everything. That motherfucker can take some hits. Holy shit. For people that didn't watch the stream, we should cover what our teams were real quick. Just off the top of my head, I had a Snorlax, Alakazam, Typhlosion, Gramble. Who else did I have? I don't remember anymore. I'm going to have to go look at it now.
You had a Typhlosion, an Alakazam, a Quagsire, a Snorlax, a Granbull, and a Dragonite.
How did I forget about Quagsire? He's my son. Quagsire is there specifically because I'm legally obligated to have something at least tangentially connected to a Wooper at all times.
And I had a Vaporeon, Venusaur, Magmar, Electabuzz, Butterfree, and Octillery.
Octillery is one of those Pokemon I forget exists most of the time. I don't know why.
This is just the team I happened to have at the end of Pokemon Crystal.
Yeah, same with me. All I did was put together a team of Pokemon that I was catching on the way through, and it just happened to be I made the right choices. Snorlax wasn't. Snorlax I actually... Because it was originally a Pidgeotto, or a Pidgeot, and Pidgeot was very obviously the weakest link on the team to a point where, like, I wasn't even using her, so I switched it to a Snorlax.
I played Crystal, 2 years ago and didn't want to play it again.
And now we still don't know what Bird Ring means.
I don't like pre-GBA Pokemon.
I love pre-GBA Pokemon because I started with pre-GBA Pokemon, and I actually never played any of the GBA ones except for... No, I played Fire Red, I think. I've never actually played Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald.
There's just blatant quality of life that's missing.
Oh, 100%.
When you tell people that you don't like Gen 2 because it's missing basic quality of life, they just accuse you of having hot, inflammatory takes. I don't like Pokemon, and I don't like people that like Pokemon. That's right, I don't like you, listener.
Or me, apparently. But
well, we knew that already.
But, so basically what Matt means by quality of life things, first of all, this can actually segue very well into what is for some stupid reason, one of my favorite parts of Pokemon Stadium 2, which is not something that either of us messed with at all on stream because it would be the most boring stream in the history of the world. But I really like the Academy because it's a really cool way to teach people how to play Pokemon, except most of the information in the Academy is now outdated because Gen 2 is before moves got split into physical and special. Up to that point, it was types and that's it. And it also just a bunch of other shit is now completely different. Nowadays, definitely because we got another type, which didn't exist in Gold, Silver, or Crystal.
that's easy enough to manage in playing older games, because, like, it's not like that type replaced anything. You just need to, like, this situation doesn't have any fairy types. That's all.
I mean, my brain still has problems remembering what fairy type it. It's the only type that I can't wrap my head around anymore, because I was an adult when fairies showed up. When I was a kid, I had all the time in the world to memorize this stupid bullshit.
See, that's every type for me.
When I was a kid, I had all the time in the world to memorize this stupid bullshit. So I know all the type advantages and type weaknesses and all that. And I don't know shit about fairy types. So, and I'm reminded of that every time I go back to a modern Pokemon game. But I think this is a really neat place to look for, like, how's Pokemon changed? And the answer is it's changed a lot, and for the better for the most part. It is evolved super heavily, and this is just sort of a microcosm of what it was like in the year 2000. Also, the cartridge was half gold, half silver, and even as a kid, I thought that was cool.
The pace of Gen 2 Pokemon is just so slow.
Well, it's because they didn't introduce running shoes until Gen 3.
Physically moving around the world, it was just a lot.
Oh yeah, I can't play Gen 2 anymore without ROM speed up. I can't do it. Even I can't do it. Crystal is my favorite Pokemon game of all time, and I can't fucking play it without ROM speed up. So, yeah, I will agree with that in general. You know my favorite part about Pokémon Stadium 2, though? Something I wish would come back, and I know why it hasn't, but God, I wish. Man, that announcer is putting in the work.
Yeah, that's the same voice actor that plays the announcer in the anime, too.
It is?
Like, whenever there's, like, a Pokemon League tournament in the anime, that is the voice actor that is the commentator.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. That's awesome. That announcer puts more personality into those battles than you'd honestly think they deserve.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, he has separate, like, sentences for different scenarios. Like, will this move possibly end the match? He has, like, 3 different lines he can say in that specific instance.
He gives some fairly, like, varied and relevant commentary, too. Like, he'll recognize when one player is far behind. He'll recognize, like, when, like, you're both on the last Pokemon, but this one, you know, someone just tossed out a new one, whereas this one is weaker. And it, like, he's got all these different scenarios that he has unique voice acting for, and it's really cool.
Hell, he has unique voice acting for some of the attacks. Yeah. I'm pretty sure every attack has a phrase dedicated to it, at least one. Like, ride that surf is the one you hear a lot. 'Cause surf is the only useful HM. That's super cool. It gives so much personality to everything. And I understand why we don't do it, because recording an announcer's dialogue for 900 Pokemon and however fucking many attacks now exist, and abilities and all that shit.
However, I will say that none of it was worth it, because this announcer perpetuated the misconception that hurting itself in its confusion means attacking itself, which is not the case. Or at least it wasn't supposed to be, but now it is.
It's supposed to be they, like, got dizzy and tripped or some shit. But I like the idea that when I confused a Pokemon, it was punching itself in the face. I think I like that headcanon better, so I'm gonna stick with that. Speaking of status effects, holy shit.
This game's rigged. Like, it cheats.
Oh yeah. People in our chats looked it up to see, like, is this game actually rigged against the player? And apparently there is no documentation to support it, seemingly because people just haven't looked into it. But when you were fighting Red, that motherfucker used Thunder about between all of your things, all of your attempts. He used Thunder like 7, 8 times, and 7 out of 8 of those times, it paralyzed you.
Which is statistically highly improbable.
First of all, Thunder is supposed to be a super inaccurate move in the first place. Like, unless Rain Dance is going, the idea is supposed to be that it is a huge gamble to use Thunder in the first place.
In fairness, there was that one back and forth where, like, me and Red both missed for 3 straight turns.
That was fucking awesome, though.
Which, like, I must acknowledge that, yes, gambler's fallacy is a thing. Improbable does not mean impossible. So, like, statistically improbable things must happen every now and then. But 7 statistically improbable things in a row probably shouldn't happen.
Like, Thunder has a 50% chance of causing paralysis. 7 out of 8 of those hits caused paralysis. And I think one time he even used a fire move from somebody, probably a Typhlosion.
Yep, and it burned.
Yeah, and it burned immediately.
And then there's, like, all the times that, like, when I was stuck in confusion or attract, and it's like, it always went poorly for me, and it went well for him. Like, it's just, just constantly, the RNG, it's like, if it happened once over the course of my playthrough, then, alright, gambler's fallacy. It has to happen once, I guess. But it's just constantly, time and time again, the statistical improbability always happened, but only when it was to my detriment.
And also, I think somebody in your chat did the math. The chances of Thunder paralyzing you 7 times in a row was like sub 1%. And that's nuts. So yeah, I think it's really hard to look at that battle and not think that it's rigged against the player, which, I mean, on one hand, sure, that does make the battle harder, whatever. That's not the right way to make the battle harder.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of insulting when you're playing a game and then you said it well during your stream, when the game decides that it's going to play by different rules now, but only here. They could have just made him like, I don't know, make him level 80, like he is in Crystal.
So this was the only game so far that we have played for this podcast that I have said, this is too hard, I will not do it. It is the only game so far. And the reason for it is because I think that what they were asking me to do was unreasonable. I think that saying, we're going to change the rules, and you're going to play by different rules now, and it's incredibly rigged against you.
You're not going to play by different rules. Red is going to play by different rules. All the same rules still apply to you.
Yeah. That I consider to be not acceptable. And it's like, I've come into the opinion as of late that I don't want to not do something just because it's hard. And like I look back at when we played Castlevania and I cheesed through the last bits of that game with save states and ended up not liking the game. And then Rondo of Blood, I stuck it out and actually beat everything legit, and I loved that game. And like ever since then, I've really been of the opinion of like, I don't want to use save states to cheese my way through something. That's why I never used a single save state in Puzzle League. And I don't want to just give up on something because it's hard. But the problem with fighting Red in Stadium 2 is not that it is hard. It's that it was literally, the game was cheating against me.
It's not that it was hard, it was how it was hard.
I won't even say it was hard. It wasn't hard, it was cheating. Saying it was hard implies that it was a legitimate challenge, but it wasn't. The game had to break its own rules to make it difficult for me. And that's where I say this isn't worth it. It's not me triumphing over a difficult challenge. It is me waiting until I get just the right RNG seed for the game to feel like it's letting me win.
Yeah, and I honestly do not blame you for putting it down from that. I mean, to be fair, you had a cash in because you beat Mewtwo twice last game, so, and I didn't even see Mewtwo, so.
I want to give a difficult challenge its fair chance, but it needs to be fair, and this was not fair.
But, you know what is fair, sort of? Minigames.
Those weren't fair at all. Did you see that Mr. Mime game?
I still remember the one where I hit it into somebody's goal, but because it lightly brushed up against one of the computer players, they got the point.
Yeah, that Mr. Mime game was bad.
I like most of the mini games in Pokemon Stadium 2. Some of them though suck. Like the Hitmontop one is not good.
My favorite is the Clefairy and Cleffa one. Not Clefairy, Igglybuff, where like it's like okay, a parade of Pokemon is about to come by. Count this specific Pokemon. And that's a really simple game. But it's also like, here, count the Dodrio, and then it throws in a bunch of Doduo too.
Yeah, that one's mean. Fuck that. That's mean. I love it.
I love that game.
I also just love in that game. I mentioned it during the stream, but I love that sometimes the AI is just like, oh shit, I forgot to count. They just hit it like 6 times.
And they always get it right. It's literally just they weren't counting so far. They just put in all their counts at the end.
It's fucking hilarious.
I tried that once, and boy, it is difficult. It's really difficult.
Well, you're not a computer, so that probably helps things.
Well, yes, but there's a difference between, like, actually counting and just hitting the A button whenever you see one. It's a lot easier to just hit the button when you see one.
That's how I play it. I really like the Pichu one when I don't have input lag.
The Pichu one is... like, it'll flash one of the buttons on screen and you just need to mash that button, either A or B.
And be pointing in the direction of that node.
I don't care for that one because it's literally just a button mash contest.
I mean, that makes it a Mario Party minigame.
Yeah, but those are the worst Mario Party minigames. Have you ever seen Zoom Zykes videos?
My favorite minigame is the log cutting minigame. And I don't know why. It's the simplest thing in the goddamn world. But when you get it right, oh, it's satisfying.
When it hits, it hits.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the log is marked with a white line and they'll drop the log and it's basically a game of chicken. You need to cut the log as close to the line as possible. But if you wait too long and you cut above it as it's falling, then you lose points. And if you cut right on it, then like 20 points.
That game was like a nightmare to play with input lag on my end, except for the very first log, which I somehow got perfectly and then was never able to pull that off again.
I still don't think you did that legitimately.
I still don't know how, but I did. But yeah, I really like the minigames. I think they give a lot of personality to stuff. And it's clearly just like the devs were like, I mean, the battle system's already programmed. There's really not much more to do after that. You want to just make a game where a Togepi runs on a treadmill? Sure.
I also really like the Chansey one where,
yes,
like you need to use the shoulder buttons to like lean back and forth to catch eggs that are falling. 'Cause it's kind of secretly a rhythm game.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy that one too. Which actually, I'm going to give a shout out. You think we can segue into music from here?
Sure.
'Cause that's one of the songs I want to give a shout out to is the music that plays during Egg Emergency. It's just this accordion theme that is surprisingly good, and I like it.
It is the sounds of France.
It's just the sounds of France.
Like you go to Epcot in Disney World, and this is what's playing in the France pavilion.
Or Italy. It seems Venetian. Could be that. I don't know cultural music because I'm in America, and we don't believe in cultures, apparently. That aren't ours. Ha 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 ha. Anyways, I have a good amount of music to shout out, but here's the thing with this one. I don't think the soundtrack of this game is all that great.
I don't remember most of it.
I think it's fine, but a lot of it is stuff that is just remixes of chiptune battle themes from Gen 1 and 2, but not as good as the chiptune versions because they're using 64 sound font MIDIs, and it just comes off as like an inferior product. Sometimes I think they do well. Like, I really like the White City menu music. Which is, what town is that a remix of? I want to say it's Saffron City.
I have no idea.
I don't remember, but it's a remix of one of the town themes. And I think that one, at the very least, manages to be just as good as its original counterpart. But I want to talk about two that not only are vastly inferior to their originals, but also are two completely baffling choices when it comes to where that music plays. The first one, and the most baffling of all, is the Red battle theme. Which is a remake of the Cave theme.
Well, they'd already used Red's theme.
But they didn't, though. The Gen 2 Champion Battle theme is not on this soundtrack. I listened to all of the songs. It's not there.
Isn't the Rival Battle theme? Like, I thought that was the Champion theme. I don't actually know.
No, it's not. That's what I had been told too, but it's not. First of all, the Rival Battle theme sucks in this game. It's not good. And second of all, I don't think it's a remix of anything. I think it might be original, because there are some original battle songs in this game. Not all of them are just remakes of original Pokemon music. And then you'd think, well, then the champion theme, it should be on Lance, right? He's the champion. No, the Lance battle theme is not. The Lance battle theme is a remix of the Gen 2 Rival battle theme. And I don't know why. It's a fine remix. It actually does sound pretty good. It's not as good as the original, but like, why that one? The choices for those two fights in particular, I have absolutely no idea why they are the way they are. I don't get it. And fuck it. I'm going to play a sample of the Gen 2 champion battle right here. That's the best champion battle in Pokemon history. Fight me. It's great. And it's nowhere in this game? What?
There are some choices, for sure. This soundtrack is, like, forgettable at best, and sometimes it's just genuinely bad.
But one song that is completely, like, engraved into my fucking brain, and I think this is the last battle song that I'm gonna bring up, but it's the Team Rocket battle theme. That fucking Dunsparce didn't stand a chance this time. But fuck that motherfucker.
And that's not ingrained in your head for good reasons.
Yeah, no, it's ingrained. I think it's a fine song. But, like, I wouldn't consider it memorable if not for that fucking Dunsparce. It's that one Pokemon that was such a even though the rest of the Pokemon on that team use the exact same strategy, and yet Dunsparce is the one that I've focused all my rage on for like 28 years.
It's because it's a weird Pokemon.
Yeah.
What even is a Dunsparce?
I think it's supposed to be like a cave salamander or some shit. I don't know. It's dumb. That's what it is. That's what Dunsparce is. It's dumb and sucks. I know you had one song that you wanted to bring up.
That was the minigame championship theme. Because this song's just goofy and stupid and good.
It has no purpose going as hard as it does. Though I'm more of a fan of just the general minigame menu music. Because it's just fun.
Honestly, really, the minigames is where the good music is.
Yeah, kind of, because I also really, really like Rampage Rollout. Because again, we need more banjos in all video game soundtracks. Banjos are what everybody, I don't care what genre you're making. I don't care if you're making a grim dark fantasy game, put a banjo in there. Don't actually do that. That would be the worst decision ever. But that song is really, really good and it really reminds me, I imagine that it was probably at least a little bit inspired by the race music from Ocarina and Majora, if I had to take a guess.
Probably, yeah. But actually, you know what? You know what other song I think is kind of really cool? It's the Professor Oak's theme. This is like a bizarre remix of something that didn't need an industrial rhythmic sound. But industrial rhythm is always good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also so here's the thing. When I was listening through the soundtrack, I actually instinctively skipped Professor Oak's theme because I figured it wouldn't be worth it. So I'm glad one of us listened to it, I guess.
Well, you were wrong. I actually had to go into Professor Oak's lab at one point.
I didn't. I never had to do that. I didn't even know Professor Oak had a lab. The last song that I want to highlight is just one that's here for me. As a child, I liked this song a lot. And again, the Earl's Pokemon Academy, that whole mode just for some reason really resonated with me as a kid. And I really liked the battle music for the Academy. And especially how it opens up with the ding, 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 ding. Like, I really, really like it. I think it's fun. But that's purely there for nostalgia.
It's a good song.
Because again, neither of us touched Earl's Pokemon Academy because that would be stream poison. What do you tune into streams for? Oh, I tune in so they can read multiple paragraphs about how to play Pokemon in the year 2000. Said nobody. But that's pretty much, this soundtrack is weird. Like, generally, I think it's fine, but it's also super unmemorable and just kind of average at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's weak. It's got a couple good songs, but overall, like, as I'm listening to them, I don't remember them.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to that as well. But, oh well, not all the soundtracks for this show have to be winners. But I don't think I have anything else to say about Pokémon Stadium 2. I think it's a very good game and an interesting look into the past, but also there's not really a huge amount of reason to go replay this game.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I guess that means it's time to move on to our next game. A game that you and our friend Vixie and one other person continuously try to convince me is real. I still don't believe you, but I guess our next game is representing fighter number 18, Dr. Mario, which I just noticed that we're going from fighter 19 to fighter 18 back to back. That's neat. It is the 2001 N64 game, the final N64 game we're playing on this show, unless you count Animal Crossing, which I don't because it didn't come out here on N64. Shut up. It is Dr. Mario 64.
Well, I mean, did you see that one tweet the other day about how it was the 20th anniversary of Dr. Mario 64?
No, because how can a game that's not real have a 20th anniversary?
I guess I don't have a response for that.
I have never played a Dr. Mario game in any way, shape, or form.
Not gonna lie, it's kind of a lame puzzle game. It's like, what if Puyo Puyo was boring?
This is gonna be a one-session game, it sounds like, for both of us. Because from the sound of it, it is very, very short. How long to beat even puts it at 1 hour.
Yeah, well, it's a game, so our win condition is not to get the best ending, but to get the best ending, you have to play it in one sitting.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if I'm gonna be good at Dr. Mario. I have no idea how Dr. Mario works. I'm gonna be real. I have zero idea. So you have played this game. Give me the lowdown on how this game even fucking works.
Well, so Dr. Mario, like I said, is Puyo Puyo but boring. Like, you've got viruses in a pill bottle, and you're sending mega vitamins down that are just Puyo Puyo blocks in order to create rows of them to get rid of them. As for the overall structure of the game, it's the same structure every puzzle game with a campaign like this has. It's like an arcade mode, like Puzzle League had, like Puyo Puyo has, like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine has. It's a very thin storyline, and you just play versus games in Dr. Mario against various nameless NPCs.
Yeah, from the sound of it, so it's just like that general, here's a little text cutscene where you're reading the dialogue between these two characters, now play a level of the puzzle game.
Pretty much, and Dr. Mario's probably going to prison because I doubt his medical license is legitimate.
I mean, we all know it's not legitimate. But Mushroom Kingdom, it seems, does not have any rules, any laws, or anything like that. Look, if Wario can be a doctor, at least one of these.
Wario is a doctor in this one. You can play the campaign as either Dr. Mario or Dr. Wario.
So, in other words, this is just malpractice the game.
No, that's the Dr. Mario mobile game, where one of the playable doctors is 3 Goombas in a trench coat.
I forgot about that!
Which, legitimately, the best character in any video game ever.
Holy shit, I forgot about that completely. That's real, people. He didn't make that up as a joke. That's a real thing that happened and can still be seen because that game's still going. But yeah, I'm iffy on whether or not I'm going to like this one. I find that I'm not super into puzzle games like this. Like, Puzzle League is fun, but I can't say I'd ever really willingly go back to it. And, like, I've played Puyo Puyo, and I think Puyo Puyo is a lot of fun. I think Tetris is a lot of fun. But I don't find myself going out of my way to play those. And I have a feeling it might be similar for this one.
I don't even really like Dr. Mario, so...
But, I mean, what else were we gonna play? You wanted this one because it's the one you played as a kid. I have zero experience with Dr. Mario, so by default, Dr. Mario 64 won out. I'm just glad that we're out of the year 2000, so I can stop saying the 2000 blank game, because, oh my god, it has not gotten any less awkward since I started doing it, and I had to do it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. So,
it's an odd complaint, but okay.
It's just awkward, okay? Now that it says 2001, it just flows better. I'm the only one that has this problem. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about Dr. Mario. I know nothing.
I don't think there's anything else to say. It's a franchise about malpractice.
It's a franchise about malpractice, and we're going to commit so much malpractice. Until next time, you can follow us on Twitter at Smashterpieces. Same with on Facebook, which I am genuinely trying to use more often. It doesn't mean I've been successful, but I am trying to post there more often, even though, like we say every time, you should delete your Facebook, but...
I've said my opinion.
We're also on YouTube. You can find us on Smashterpieces. You can also see all of our stream VODs on that channel. I think it's pretty fun and cool to go watch the stream VODs, and by that I mean if you're into it, you can go do it. They all go up there usually within 2-3 days of when they were originally streamed. Sometimes, if I'm feeling real spicy, they go up the day after. But not always. And you can follow me on Twitter at Thetabaga. You can follow Matt at Grimace Do Menace. And you can follow our editor Peter at Pete Speak Easy. He does a little spit shine on the episodes before they are sent over to me to put in the music and then slap it on the internet so you all can hear it. So you should go give him a follow. And you can also listen to the podcast that I do with him, which is called Original Sound Chat. And it's basically, if you like the part of the show where we talk about the game's soundtrack, it's basically that, but stretched into like an hour-and-a-half show and talking about 2 games instead of 1. So you should check that out if you like game music.
You can also get updates on what Joe's been playing there, because this is one of the only gaming podcasts that doesn't talk about that at all.
Yeah, pretty much. Very brief updates, though. And if you want to watch us stream these games as we go, which you'll be able to watch us streaming Dr. Mario 64, and also a lot of things that aren't being played just for Smashterpieces, you can head on over to twitch.tv/Nintendo World Report. If you follow Nintendo World Report on Twitter, that is Nintendo_NWR. You will see graphical schedules of all we're streaming, whether it has to do with Smashterpieces or not. And we've been killing it on that channel recently, so you should absolutely go check it out. Give us a follow, and if you like what you see, give us a subscription. I don't got anything else that I gotta push.
This is the only thing I do of any substance.
So I guess with that, my name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And we will see you next time for our discussion on Dr. Mario 64.